Yeah, sounds
Hey,
good.
how you all going? It's Jai, that Aussie Metal Guy here with Crannk and with that metal station out of the US. And today I get to have a chat with Paul Green and Ed Gibbs out of Devil Sold His Soul, who are due to release their fourth studio album, Loss, 9th of April through Nuclear Blast, which is the first album through Nuclear Blast for these guys, and also the first album where Ed and Paul actually recorded the album together, man. So cheers for joining me, guys.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, man.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks for
you.
having us.
No, absolute pleasure, man. And it is a ripping album. I want to dive into a little bit more of some of the tracks there that I really liked out of it. But first, I want to ask, what was it like for you guys to record this album together, man? It must have been a bit of a buzz.
Yeah, it was wicked. It's like it was really easy. I think a lot of people can make a big mountain out of these sorts of things and not work well together or whatever. But we had a really fun time. We had some beers. We chilled out. It was just it was real easy.
Yeah, I mean, we've been asked that question a few times. I think some people are kind of hoping there'd be a bit more drama, but it's really like kind of not that exciting in some respects, because we just really get on really well. So it's just been super easy.
Yeah, well, I didn't think there'd be any drama at all with you guys. I've heard your music for a while, and I know you guys are all easygoing kind of guys. If anything, you've been singing together since 2017, if anyone had checked. So you've kind of been hanging out and singing together anyway. So it would have just been a natural progression to go, hey, let's just record this album together. You know what I mean? Instead of just
Yeah, I mean, in that sense, we kind of eased into it, doing those shows together, and then spending like a year doing shows before we even started thinking about writing stuff. So yeah, it was a really smooth transition. It wasn't anything we had to think too hard about. It was cool.
Yeah, probably from the moment you started singing back together on stage, when you were on the bus or touring together, you probably would have already started working on tracks as well together, going, yeah, we should probably do this, or thinking about that mind-wise as well back then.
I guess it definitely the touring definitely gave us that mentality to want to do something more. I don't think we were really thinking about new tracks particularly until maybe we did Japan, and then we were like, yeah, we're in a really good space. Let's do this, guys. We're like, this is the best fun we're having we've had. Let's just enjoy it. Let's keep going. And I think that's a real positive thing. You can easily kind of get drawn back into that lull between touring and stuff, and just be like, nah, I can't be bothered to do anything. You know what? I'm just gonna go down, see my mates, go down a pub, whatever. But yeah, we stuck it out. We've worked really hard to get this record done. So yeah.
What was the songwriting process like with this one?
It was. You know what? It was actually it took us a while to learn how we could work together in terms of songwriting, because it's not straightforward if you're bringing two ideas, types of people with different types of ideas together, and you don't have a process already. So for us, it was a case of find your feet with that, and as soon as we got our feet properly embedded into it, we just it was pretty easy going from then. Lyrics were harder, definitely, because it's tough to share the lyrical responsibilities and do that sat next to each other. But we managed to do it, and it the process is fine now.
Sorry.
You go, Ed.
I was going to say, like stepping back to even when we started writing the music together and stuff, there's this weird, funny mirroring between us as a band kicking off proceedings and also me and Paul kicking off proceedings in terms of writing the vocals, in that we all tried to do it quite remotely to start with, and because I mean we hadn't written albums since 2012 and hadn't written an EP since 2014, so there hadn't been we hadn't been together to write stuff, so it really needed to brush off the cobwebs, I think, in many respects. And we tried to jump in at the deep end by trying to do stuff remotely at first, and it just wasn't really working. But as soon as we got in a room together as a band, songs started working out and things started moving. I mean, it's when you say it out loud, it's such an obvious thing. So, well, yeah, of course, you guys are together doing stuff. And the exact same thing happened with the vocals when the songs kind of got I don't know, towards the end of putting them together and basically knowing what songs we had to work on, and the structures of them were basically there. Paul and I tried to do the same thing. We tried to write remotely, didn't work. But second we got in a room together, it worked miraculously. So yeah, lesson be learned. Just go at it old school, and that's what we'll do in the future, I think.
Yeah, and then trying to have those the the vocals as well, with the lyrics as well, the musical voicings and the placings as well, working together, it probably would have been easier to work those bits out, I suppose.
Yeah,
definitely. Besides remotely.
Yeah, big time. I mean, we did come up with some good stuff remotely, like, but they were really bitty parts. They were kind of like little small sections of songs rather than like, you know, really concise elements, like not full sections, not full tracks. We and a lot of that was down to just like that crippling self-doubt that you get when you're being creative. And you kind of need somebody just to confirm that actually what you've written isn't terrible. So yeah, we kind of bounced that off each other. It's like, you know, it helped us in terms of not just being able to write it, but just in terms of our
confidence building.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So yeah, I think it's been beneficial more than just our sound, but in terms of how we feel about how our writing is now. It's I just feel like I feel like I'm not as terrible as I thought I was. And
no, you're most definitely not. You're most definitely not. And the lyrics are unreal on this album. You do touch on some quite emotional subjects, if you know what I mean. I've got to listen to the lot, but not forgotten, and the loss and that. And it would have been a quite emotional songwriting process as well, you know, because we all go through things in life as well, and probably some personal things happening at the time for the band impacted as well.
Yeah, hugely. I mean, especially that last track, Lost, the title track, because, you know, our drummer Alex lost his mum really suddenly, and you know, that track's all for her. It's all about her, and it's all about how he feels, how he felt, especially at that time, and how he was grieving. And you know, we didn't try and do it from our own perspectives on that, like we would usually do on the track. We spoke to him at length about how he was feeling, and kind of just wrote a lot of stuff down and translated that into the lyrics. And you know, the track itself musically becomes pretty personal. I mean, I'll let Ed talk a bit more about that because he had more input into that side.
But I was just going to say, like with Lost as well, specifically, like obviously the starting point was definitely like what Alex was going through and stuff. But then like it really kind of goes into like I suppose kind of more of a global truth that a lot of us can sort of relate to, how sometimes going through grief like that, it hits you like just out of the blue, out of nowhere, and that's kind of that's why we decided we were kind of going to repeat those sort of two sections rather than like writing more lyrics to it, and you know, doing a different second verse, doing some different stuff at the end. It was really about like how you come back to that stuff, don't you? Like it's like a recurring thought, like it goes out of your mind and then it comes back in again and it's exactly the same, and then getting that horrible realization that like all you have left are like memories, and that's kind of what the end of the song's about. Like it's just like a repeating line, it's all that I've got left, and it's just that horrible sort of panic-stricken moment that you sometimes hits you when you're like grieving, that it really becomes very real sometimes. Like it softens out and it sort of goes into the background quite a bit, and then it will just jump straight back out at you again, and that's really what that song goes to, I think, like thematically.
Yeah, it's a beautiful track, and I like the way you've laid the tracks out on this album. I'm a big album person, you know.
Cool,
I love listening to whole albums. For me, you know, they're gonna hate me, but the streaming cycle kind of does my head in sometimes because of the singles. But when you get an album like Lost, and I love albums, putting an album in and going through this whole journey with the band and the story they're trying to tell through each track, you know, and as it leads into But Not Forgotten, and then with Lost straight after, it is quite it's a good journey. You don't feel down. It does at points make you feel that emotion, but it's got other points that make you look at the light too, through the dark and the emotion that's going on around you.
It's all about a journey, and I think we've always tried to do that with our albums. Is like you really need, like the order of the songs is just as important as the songs themselves, because if you don't get it right, you don't get the same interplay between the songs. You don't get the same like poignancy that a certain song can give another song. Like coming out of like an emotional but sort of uplifting song like Beyond Reach going into The Narcissist, you don't get that contrast if you'd gone from maybe something else. Like if you'd gone from maybe Witness Marks into The Narcissist, you wouldn't have that same contrast. And it's all about that contrast and journey, definitely, and figuring out what the interplay of how a song finishes to the way the song starts. Like again. Sorry, that was wrong. It's Tateishi into
Tateishi, the narcissist, and Beyond reaches
but,
after.
I mean, same sort of deal in terms of like mood shifts. But I was also thinking of how Beyond Reach goes into Signal Fire. How it's like a chop. It's like a timed gap, isn't it? So it's like you get like barely get a time to breathe between the two, and it's really figuring out how
take half a breath and then bam straight back
exactly.
in. It's like you're not giving you letting you up and that. But then there's others that we've got those really wonderfully like kind of slow, delicate intros and stuff that I really love when Rick and Johnny write those things, and it's just it adds so much to the sound. Maybe it's not as instant for the Spotify streamers or whatever, and I totally understand where you're coming from. But that's the whole point of an album. It's about the balance, it's about the journey, it's about having short, sharp things, but and then having beautiful intros. You've got those opportunities.
It's all puzzle pieces into like a full picture, I think. Like the songs have to work together to make themselves work together to make the whole even better, if that makes sense.
It does. It's weaved wonderfully from Ardua right into Lost in the end. You know what I mean? An artist like yourself, as you're saying, you put these subtle little nuances into like one track as it leads into the next. Tatashi, as you're saying, into the narcissist, and you don't get that if you just pick the one track. But when you listen to the whole album, you can pick up these subtle little nuances from one track leading into the next and things like that. And as you're telling the journey, and it must have been easier for you guys on your vocals, since you're both singing together live now as well. It mustn't feel like such pressure on your lyrics, on your vocal boxes. I've chatted to metalcore singers about
it's that. It's the absolute best.
I think both of us are quite anxious and introverted people, so the idea of sharing it is like that's one of the things that makes it really work. Neither of us came in from any particularly big ego. It was just like no one was like, "Oh, you're stepping on my toes." It's like, "Oh, thank fuck, I've got someone to share this with."
I love it, and live it's kind of really nice because when you're not singing parts that maybe you're used to before, you can just become a hype man and just run around the stage, kind of like just getting the crowd working. So it's really fun.
Yeah, I love the way how it seamlessly works with both of you too. Like neither one doing just the heavies or one doing the cleans. It's like you kind of lead into each other, and it's you can tell you've been doing it for a while, and you're quite comfortable in that environment working together.
It has. I think having those extra years, kind of learning how we work in a live stage, has definitely helped us with that balance. But also naturally, it came together like that on the record. Or we didn't. I don't think we ever said like, "Oh, this bit's going to be mine, this bit's going to be yours." It was just
we never had those conversations. It's really weird. It's like we were reading each other's minds in some respects. Like we just went with the flow the whole time. I think that's kind of the way we did it.
Definitely our tracks on there, like you do more vocals on than me, and some I do more on you than you, and that's kind of the balance of the album. That's why the album's so important. It's not
absolutely.
That
was our thing. Like the only prerequisite we had was it needed to be like even across the album. Like we didn't want either of us to be like the main vocalist, if that makes sense. Even though maybe like certain points in the album, one of us might become more of a focus than the other. But like we just went at it. So, like it was the most naturalistic like music writing I've ever done, because it was like, because there were two of us, you really just had to lean into the collaboration of it, because usually both of us are just like, you sit there and you think about it, and you think about it really, really hard to the point of like it stops being enjoyable. But because you're working together, and like Paul was saying, like you can be your own worst enemy when you're being creative. Like you can do something and you'll instantly go, no, that's rubbish, delete it, put it in the bin, never want to hear that again. But whereas when you're working with someone else, you singing something that you might instantly be like, oh, I hate it, someone else might hear it and go, actually, no, you know what, before you press delete on that, I liked how you did this into this, and I liked how you did that to that, and how, like, maybe it might just be two notes, like a note change in it, but sometimes just hearing someone else do something can then spark an idea in someone else, and we can, between the two of us, we really constructed a lot of the vocals as a collaboration, like, and really shifted and dug into what we were doing, but in like a really easy way. Like it sounds like that's a lot of work, but it was actually kind of less work because you're not getting too bogged down in your own mind. I think having that other person there with a sympathetic ear and not being like overly critical of you allows you to be less critical of yourself, I think.
Yeah, I get that because we're all like that as human beings. Even me, I hear my own voice doing these things and I just want to punch myself in the nose. I'm like, shut up, dude. You know what I mean?
Oh, man.
You know, everybody, but that's the important thing. We're all the same as human beings. And I think this last year and a half is whatever's shown that we're kind of all the same. We're all kind of going through this thing together as well. And, you know, even artists like yourself feel the same things, like with the track Witness Marks. You can kind of see that with the anxiety and the issues that, you know, someone like myself faces as well. I got a lot out of that track too, man.
Cool,
Can you tell me quickly a little bit about that track?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm with you 100%. And I've suffered quite a bit of anxiety issues over the last like 10 years, I reckon, now. And I think it's really important just to get that crap off your chest. So, I mean, that song, it's a nod to not just like in my suffering or everyone in the bands has their issues, but also like some friends as well. And, you know, I've seen a lot of people that kind of portray their lives as being like really, really happy and cheerful and super posy and everything, but you can see in their eyes, man, that they are sad as hell. And there's a lot of deep sadness in people that they don't want to show and share, which I get because it's quite a personal thing to reach out about. But that's what the chorus is sort of read in there.
Absolutely, it's like that song. As soon as you started showing me lyrics to that, it was like absolutely singing to me as well, because I deal with a lot of the same stuff, and I think it's just part of the human condition to a certain degree. But yeah, just the fact that you can be going through stuff and you can't, it's just hard to talk to people about it, and that's kind of like hiding it inside yourself the whole time.
I think there's a line in there as well. That was a friend of mine from work. Her daughter was going through some tough times. Like she just found out about some stuff, and like she was basically telling me about how she doesn't know if her daughter knows what it's like to be all right anymore. She doesn't know what normal is, what feeling okay is anymore. And that's kind of that one of the last lyrics in it is that I can't breathe, it's pulling me off my feet. Although I'm alive, I've forgotten how it is to feel alive, feel all right. And it's and I think a lot of people feel the same. As like they may be going through life struggling and thinking that's the norm. This is
thinking you're potentially the only one that's struggling as well.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think there's some really important parts in that track, and I think the whole thing in general, it's a long song, obviously, but journey-wise, lyrically, I think there's a lot of important messages in it.
I mean, there's the line in the middle as well of that song, the witness marks that we hold. It's just that's just like a metaphor for like just the fact that, you know, everyone's got these sort of notches inside them that show their journey, but no one sees it because it's all on the inside and everyone's dealing with the same stuff.
Yeah, I think it's important to have these conversations, and if, you know, it's okay to not be okay. And I've talked to a lot of bands, and, you know, we've had this discussion. I think it's okay to not be okay, and it's good for people to have these conversations, especially people like yourself. So if you're not feeling okay, seek someone, talk to someone. It's okay to not be okay. Just seek some help, okay? Cheers. Yeah. Devil Salty Soul. This is an absolutely great album. Everyone grab Loss on the 9th of April. Chuck it in your stereos. Turn up really loud. The neighbours are going to want to hear this. Any last words, shout-outs or thank yous you want to add in, guys?
Just thank you for giving us this time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, honestly, like, and the fact that anyone in Australia even knows who we are, let alone cares about us, it means a hell of a lot. We want to be over there playing shows. So let's see what we can do and come, you know, just get out there. Let's do it.
Awesome, guys. Thank you very much for making some time. And now let's stop.